base hit. A base hit by Jimmy Qualls, and it breaks up the perfect game. Now the applause for Don Seaver. 8 1/3 innings of perfect baseball by Seaver.
And the pitch to Melendez. Fastball, strike 3 ball, and Seaver has a brand new National League record.
Live from Shea Stadium in New York, today the Mets take on the Chicago Cubs. Mets Baseball 92 is brought to you by Budweiser. Look for Bud's summer game details at participating retailers. By the New Jersey Bell Yellow Pages. No other book can match it. New Jersey Bell, a Bell Atlantic company. By your Tri-State Lincoln Mercury dealers who say think smart, think sale, think savings during their big summer clearance. By Chemical, intellectual currency, capital strength. By Macy's, we're a part of your life. By your Tri-State Toyota dealers, I love what you do for me, Toyota. And by Coca-Cola, enjoy all the Mets excitement with Coca-Cola Classic. Can't beat the real thing. A battle of right-handers today on the mound for the Cubs. Mike Morgan looking for his 3rd straight win. He's 9-4. With a 2.47 ERA. And for the Mets, David Cone, 12-4, 2.71. He's won his last 7 decisions.
A quick look at the National League East. Pittsburgh on top of Montreal by 2 games. The Chicago Cubs in 3rd place by 5. The Mets 5.5 back, followed by St. Louis and Philadelphia. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another afternoon of Mets baseball. I'm Tim McCarver along with Bob Carpenter. Ralph Kiner is in Cooperstown this afternoon for the inductions into the Hall of Fame. And speaking of those inductions, 3 of those inductions are pitchers, 1 an umpire, and what a pitching matchup we had today, Bob.
Tim, you've got to go pretty far to find a better matchup than this today. A couple of guys that their skippers would refer to as horses on the mound.
Ooh.
Mike Morgan has never been on the disabled list in his career. He's making his 22nd start. And David Cone for the Mets has thrown over 400 pitches in his last 3 starts. 166 down to 125 and then 115 in Philly the other night. But that's a horse, too.
Speaking of pitching, we will be visiting with the Hall of Fame inductee this afternoon, and I guess you could say he is the ultimate right after this from Budweiser. Welcome back to Shea Stadium. I'm Tim McCarver, and the oohs and ahs of the baseball world are on Cooperstown, New York this afternoon, where one George Thomas Seaver will be honored and inducted into the Hall of Fame. Tom, thank you very much for being with us.
Timmy, it's a pleasure to be here. Great to hear your voice, and great to be able to share some of the moments that are going on up here in Cooperstown.
For a man, I guess that's my first question, for a man with such clarity of thought, is this going to be an emotional day for you?
There is no doubt in my mind this is an emotional day, and it's going to be it's been an emotional weekend for me. And I reflect back of when I won my 300th game at Yankee Stadium. I knew it was going to be an emotional day, one way or the other. And I'm convinced that you have to vent those emotions, that anxiety and that emotion, and let it out. Because if you try to suppress it, it can start to control you. There's a couple things that are going to be very difficult for me to say today. But I think if you express that emotion and bring it out in a joyous manner, which I tried to do when I won my 300th game, and I'm going to try and do that today so I can enjoy this on such a happy note, because that's exactly what it is. And then all my family and friends that are here, and the many Met fans that I saw when I was coming over here in a car. I mean, they're walking up the streets with number 41 on their back. I want them to enjoy the day, and it should not be, in any respect, a sad day. And it should be a joyous day for everybody here, including the inductees.
You obviously had a great deal of talent to do what you did. 311 wins, 205 losses, a 2.86 earned run average. But it was your creativity that you brought to the art of pitching.
Well, your choice of words is exactly right, Timmy. I considered what I did for a living an art form, and I considered what I did with that art form a creative venture. And I never really felt I got to the point where I knew everything there was to know about pitching. I was trying to leave myself open that there was one more thing to learn. There's always something else that you can improve on. It may take you 3 months to learn it, and may take you 3 months to find it when you're in your 19th and your 20th year, and your skills have eroded, and you only have X amount to work with. But I think the mindset of letting yourself continue to learn at an art form is extremely important. But that's my approach to what I did for a living for 20 years was, yes, this is an art form, and it's creative, and it's a great combination of mental and physical talents as well.
Tom, congratulations on one of the biggest days of your life, and we will help you share those emotions a week from Tuesday on the 11th right here at Shea Stadium.
I look forward to it, Timmy. Thank you, and it's great to visit with you today.
So do we. And we'll be right back for the start of today's ball game right after this from Macy's. A beautiful summer's day here at Shea Stadium, 84 degrees, hardly a breeze, low humidity, and two red-hot pitchers going against one another. David Cone for the Mets, Mike Morgan for the Cubs. David 12-4. He has won his last 7 decisions. He is 10th in the National League in earned run average, and far and away the strikeout leader in the major leagues. As a matter of fact, his closest pursuer in the National League, John Smoltz, with only 149 strikeouts. So David Cone going after win number 13 this afternoon.
And he faces a Cubs batting order, 10th in the league, hitting at .243. They're tied with the Pirates for 6th in home runs. Ray Sanchez is the shortstop. He's leading off today against the right-hander. Ryan Sandberg with a big night here last night, average up to .298, batting second. Mark Grace has been swinging well. He's the first baseman, batting third, and Andre Dawson, top 6 in the league in home runs, is the cleanup man. Derek May, a late insertion into left field in place of Cal Daniels. Sammy Sosa, who has led off, is in the 6th spot this afternoon. Rip Wilkins is the catcher, batting 7th. Steve Buechele pulled a ribcage muscle last night, so Jose Vizcaíno is at third base, and the pitcher batting 9th is 32-year-old Mike Morgan. Defensively for the Mets, Darrell Boston will be in left field. Vince Coleman in center. Bobby Bonilla in right. Dave Magadan, the third baseman. Dick Schofield, the sure-handed shortstop. Willie Randolph at second base. Eddie Murray at first base. And Todd Hundley behind the plate. The umpires for this afternoon's game, Ed Montague behind the plate. Tom Halling will be at first base. At second base, Mike Winters and Phil Cuzzy over at third. Mets 5.5 games out of first place behind the Pirates. They're only a half a game behind the Cubs. These two teams meeting last night and splitting a doubleheader. Friday night's game rained out. Last night the Mets won 3-0 in game 1. They lost 6-1 to Jeff Robinson and the Cubs in game 2. Important ball game, Tim, for both teams. The Cubs are trying to win their 4th consecutive series. There's Tom Trebelhorn, who helps Jim Lefevre. And the Mets, meanwhile, have a chance to set the tone for next weekend in Chicago, when these two teams will get together for 4 if they can take 2 out of 3 here. Hall of Fame game, of course, tomorrow, 2 in Pittsburgh, and then on to Wrigley Field for a big 4-game series starting on Thursday. So this an important step looking ahead to that next weekend.
Jim Lefevre looking ahead to today. The old saying, one at a time in baseball over 162 games season is very, very important. It's an old cliche for some, but most necessary from the ball player's standpoint. Ray Sanchez takes ball 1, and he fouls it back. 1-1 to Ray, batting only .225, but he's a good glove man. As a matter of fact, the Cubs with one of the better defensive infields in the big leagues, with Sandberg, of course, at second, Grace, an excellent fielder, at first, Buechele at third base, even though he's out of there today. This one lifted to right field to Bonilla over near the line, and Bobby makes the catch. 1 out here in the first inning.
Yeah, the Cubs get that infield back together with Sean Dunston, Tim, and it's reminiscent of the great Dodger infield of Say, Russell, Lopes, and Garvey, that all-star infield that you played with in 1963 with Boyer, Grote, Javier, and Bill White.
All 4 made the all-star team that year. That's exactly right.
But they get Dunston back in there with a healthy Buechele, this guy at second, and Mark Grace at first, and that's all-star caliber all the way around.
Well, this guy is some player. Ryne Sandberg, who tied a Cubs record with 8 straight hits before grounding out in his 3rd at bat last night. He had 6 straight hits, 4 in the first game, and 2 his first 2 times up in game 2, and that was after having 2 hits in his last 2 at bats in the game the Cubs played before coming here to Shea. 1-1 to Ryne Sandberg. Inside, ball 2, 2-1. Jeff Torborg has seen yet another pitcher go down, not for the first, but for the second time. Brett Saberhagen is down again as the curveball catches the corner. 2-2 to Sandberg. Saberhagen leaving after 3 innings last night. That index finger of his pitching hand flaring up once again. Fly ball left field as Sandberg throws his bat at the ball. Boston bobbles it, and Sandberg will go to second base, and we'll see how it's scored. How about that? That sweeping curveball, Sandberg throws his bat, and Boston having all sorts of problems with it.
Initial reaction is hit and an error. Right off the end of the bat, and Darryl Boston thought he could catch it. Then he gets caught in between. The ball comes up, and that's a boot. Got to be all the way. By the time he throws, Sandberg is into second base, but literally a hitter throwing his bat at the ball. It'll be a base hit for Sandberg, getting him closer to 300, and the Mets' 77th error of the year on Darryl Boston.
So Sandberg at second base, 1 out, and Mark Grace, the batter. Grace batting .315 on the year. He is 5th in the National League in hitting. National League's leading hitter, John Kruk of the Phillies, and the fastball low to Mark Grace. That, by the way, is Sandberg's 7th hit in this series. He is 7 for 9. One and 1 to Grace.
And when you're talking about the 2 Cubs that were in your picture there, outstanding defense as well. Sandberg has his 4th errorless streak of better than 50 games of his career, and Mark Grace has been playing errorless ball at first base lately as well. He has played 62 consecutive, and Sandberg's right around 60.
Breaking ball. Did he go too far? Yes, says third base umpire Phil Cuzzy. Grace thought he held up, but it's a ball and 2 strikes to Mark Grace.
Cone very effective to left-handers with that breaking ball that looks like a fastball until the last moment. Then it dives severely down and into the left-hander, and Grace did have the bat through the hitting zone, although he may not have broken the wrists as they used to say, but that's not the criteria anymore. It's where the bat goes across the plate.
1 ball, 2 strikes to Grace. Sandberg at second, 1 out here in the first inning. Inside, barely. 2-2 to Grace. That's the thing about David Cone. When you think about those sequence of pitches that he feeds hitters, he's constantly changing the eye level of the hitter. Splitters down, fastballs inside, fastballs away, fastballs high, breaking balls down. He is a very, very difficult assignment. The splitter lifted to center field and playable for Coleman. 2 outs.
Almost a situation where this hitter threw his bat at the ball. David Cone able to drop that splitter down and away from the left-hander. Now here's the inside fastball that barely missed. The count went to 2-2. Now watch the downward away movement of that one, and there's Grace hitting with one hand. So Sandberg throwing his bat at the ball, and then Grace one-handed flying to center. Cone overmatching two pretty good hitters. Sandberg, though, with enough magic to get on base.
Andre Dawson now the batter. Dawson 252, 15 home runs on the year with 15 doubles. Blew that one by Andre. It's 0-1 to the Hawk, Andre Dawson. Talked to hitters about facing David Cone, and they say it's much like the doll in the back of those cars with those that bobs back and forth. You have no control of the head movement, you know. Fouled away, 0-2 now to Dawson.
You know, people might think that's a little far-fetched, Tim, but Ted Williams at one time addressed that very thing. Somebody asked him why he never chewed gum when he was hitting. He said, it makes my eyes pop up and down. Fractions of inches, but to a hitter with a keen eye against tough pitchers, it makes a big difference.
You know, I've never heard that story. That's a great line. That's of course, if Williams says it, that's enough for all hitters to stop chewing gum.
It's time to write it down when he says it.
That's right. Inside to Dawson, 1-2. Williams also an advocate of never reading in a riding vehicle. He never read on a train, on a plane, or in a car. Bad for the peeps. 2-2 to Dawson. One on, two out here in the first inning. The rubber game of this three-game series. The Mets and Cubs splitting last night. And as Bob said earlier, they will play a four-game series at Wrigley Field in Chicago next weekend, Thursday through Sunday. High, ball three. 3-2 to Dawson. Fly ball, right field, over near the line is Bonilla, and foul ball. Bonilla diving, and that ball just foul, and we'll see if the durable Bonilla is hurt. Nice try. But more importantly, is Bobby Bonilla okay?
Headlong dive right at the line. This ball was slicing away from him. Fortunately for the Mets, it hit right next to the line. Chalk did not fly from the ball, but plenty of it flew when Bobby Bonilla hit the line.
You know, it looked like Bonilla may have obscured the line when he dived for the ball. That ball was very close. It looked like he touched it before it had a chance to come down and hit the line. That could have been a fair ball.
Look, and on that replay from that angle right down the line, it looked like he just did tick it with his glove. See, that ball's coming down fair, and Bonilla, in essence, knocks it foul. Tough call for Tom Hallion, and the Mets get a break.
No argument by first base coach Jose Martinez or Andre Dawson. Still 3-2.
Jeff Torborg, talking about his right fielder this morning, says that Bobby right now is playing with sore feet. He's got and he's holding his right rib now where he hit that line very hard. So combined with the foot problem he's been suffering, it's a nagging sort of thing. He's hurting a bit right now. That was a long run for the big fella.
Dawson fouls it back again. Still 3 balls, 2 strikes. Take another look at the play of the diving Bonilla. Ouch. Fly ball, left field, and playable for Darrell Boston. Over near the line, and he makes the catch. Cubs fail to score in the first. The Mets coming up after this from Anheuser-Busch. David Cohn retired the Cubs on 3 fly balls in the top of the first inning. And the antithesis of that style of pitching is Mike Morgan. You will see a lot of ground balls out of a guy who's just been superb for the Cubs all season long.
Facing a Mets batting order, last in the league hitting at .234. Vince Coleman, though, .375 against the Mets Cubs this year, as we bring you the lineup brought to you by your local Chevrolet Geo dealer. And the Mets lineup continues then with Dave Magadan, the player of the month for July. Darrell Boston with Howard Johnson off, playing left field. Eddie Murray in the cleanup spot. The banged up Bobby Bonilla 5th, followed by switch hitter Todd Hundley. Willie Randolph 7th. Dick Schofield batting 8th ahead of the pitcher David Cohn.
And the first pitch to Vince Coleman is a strike on the outside corner. The defense for the Cubs, Derek May in left field, Sammy Sosa the center fielder, Andre Dawson in right, Vizcaíno, Sanchez, Sandberg, Grace in the infield, and Rick Wilkins behind the plate. And the count is 1 ball, 1 strike to Vince Coleman. Vince's big problem this year is staying healthy. He has been on the disabled list twice. Once with a pulled hamstring and once with a pulled rib cage muscle. 2 balls and 1 strike to the swift Coleman. Ground ball, nice play, Vizcaíno. And that's that defense we were talking about in the top of the first. 1 out.
Bobby Bonilla coming in from the field after the top of the first.
Where's the ball, Jim?
And consulting with the Mets training staff, Dr. Olczyk will come in, and Bobby took off his shirt. There's Dr. Olczyk coming up out of the runway. He obviously got the call to meet Bobby in the dugout. They're checking him over, and we'll see how he's able to continue if he can.
Dave Magadan now takes the curveball low, ball 1. 1-0 today, batting .287. Another curve for a strike, 1-1. Mike Morgan's last outing was an 11-1 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. And back on July 28th, 5 days ago. Good fastball, and that's that sinker that is heavy. It's hard to pull, and if you try to pull it, all you'll do is play pepper with the second baseman all day long if you're a left-handed hitter.
Especially on the thick grass of Wrigley Field, where Mike Morgan is 8-1 career with an ERA of about a 1.40.
Line drive, great play by Mark Grace. Oh boy. But there again is that defense on the infield that we talked about in the first inning. We didn't realize it would come to the fore immediately.
These guys are starting to look like the San Diego Padres did here last weekend. They robbed the Mets with great defense. First the third baseman, now Grace with a headlong dive. Just a couple of reaction plays at either corner of the infield.
2 outs, and Darrell Boston the batter. No score, bottom of the first inning. Strike 1 to Boston. The splitter is low, 1-1 to Darrell. Howard Johnson being given a day off today after playing in both ends of the doubleheader last night. This one hit deep to left field. Back is Derek May at the warning track, and he makes the catch. The Mets go in order in the bottom of the first. No score after 1. We'll be back after this from Chemical. Dave Gallagher is in right field, spelling Bobby Bonilla, and we'll show you why Gallagher is out there.
Bonilla on a foul ball by Andre Dawson, diving headlong and crashing that left side, actually the right side of his rib cage, into the warning track dirt.
This ball drilled to left center over his Boston and now in, and he makes the play. Derek May hitting a 1-0 pitch. 1 out here in the second inning. You wouldn't think that there would be a break if there is a problem, and obviously there is a problem, either a contusion or a separation of the rib cage, but sometimes pulls can be worse than breaks if it's a rib, because of the nature of baseball athleticism. You have to swing the bat, the rib cage taking a lot of pulling motion as it is, and we will try to have a report for you as soon as possible on the condition of Bobby Bonilla. Here's Sammy Sosa, the center fielder. Low to Sammy. Sosa coming over to the Cubs in spring training for George Bell. Ken Patterson, a left-handed pitcher, also coming across town to the north side Cubs. Ground ball up the middle, base hit for Sosa. So Sosa has the second Cub hit, and he is a threat to steal. 13 on the year.
When he went on the disabled list with a broken right hand, Dennis Martinez hit him with a pitch on June 12th. Sammy had 12 of Chicago's 28 steals at that time. He was out for a couple of weeks. This guy reminds me of the young Bobby Bonds. He's got power, he's got speed, he strikes out a lot. He's an outfielder who's exciting to watch. And I think he's a potential 20-20, 30-30 man someday if he gets a chance to play every day and stays injury free.
He had 15 home runs for the White Sox 2 years ago, and then Larry Himes, the general manager then of the White Sox, he's now with the Cubs, sent him down last year from the White Sox, and he came back up later in the year, but he had a rather disorganized season last year, and Himes went over to the Cubs and decided that Sosa was well worth another look. No balls and 1 strike to Rick Wilkins, the catcher. High, ball 1, 1-1. Cubs have only 49 stolen bases. They are next to last in that department. San Diego Padres with 47 are last in the National League. But consider the fact that the Milwaukee Brewers have 143 stolen bases already. Almost 100 more than the Cubs or the Padres. Quick throw, and Sosa looked like he had an idea about going, but he scampered back.
He definitely took a step towards second base. Right there was the lean. Cone wheels and fires. And Eddie Murray just couldn't get the glove to the first foot of Sosa to get to the bag. Got him on the back of the right leg. If he got him on the front, Sammy would have been out.
Looked like a short hop, and Eddie didn't have control of the ball. That's why the tag was slow. Outside, ball 2. 2 balls and a strike to Rick Wilkins. No score here in the second inning. 1 out, 1 on. David Cone going for victory number 13 on the year. His career record 79-45. That was close.
Sosa not a very experienced base runner because he has had so sporadic time in the major leagues. And again, Murray slapping him on the back of the calf. Here's our version of the base cam. It's called a little bit slow with that tag, but very close again, and now he's running.
He's running, and the ball's off of Hundley's glove. And by the time Sosa recovered, Hundley recovered. So Sammy has his 14th stolen base of the year, and he's at second with 1 out.
Tough pitch for Todd Hundley. It's low and inside, plus he's trying to move out of there to make the play, and he has to go backhand. No chance whatsoever. And lucky are the Mets to keep Sosa at second base on that play.
The pitch was low for a ball. It's 3 balls and 1 strike now to Rick Wilkins, a .309 batter. Hit well to right center field. Gallagher back. He makes the catch. Sosa will go to third base, but the big thing as far as the Mets are concerned, there are now 2 outs. Rick Wilkins, built like a linebacker, and with good reason. He went to Furman University on a combined baseball and football scholarship. He's from the Jacksonville, Florida area. And the coach, the football coach at Furman at the time, told him he could play baseball and football, and then the coach went to North Carolina State. I can't think of the coach's name now.
Dick Sheridan?
Dick Sheridan,
yeah.
Right. He went to North Carolina State, and when he left, Wilkins left Furman and went to a junior college to concentrate on baseball. Jose Vizcaíno, the batter. Jose with his first major league home run in last night's doubleheader in the second game. He wanted to bunt, not a bad play, but Magadan was in at third base.
Such a weird game, too, for the Mets last night. You look back and they were beaten pretty soundly on the scoreboard, but they had a chance to take control of the game early and couldn't do it. And a guy named Jeff Robinson, whichever Jeff Robinson it was, out of the bullpen to retire 17 consecutive at one point. And I noticed by the Mets notes he has earned himself another start Wednesday night up in Montreal.
I think there are 3 Jeff Robinsons, right?
Yeah, you have to go by the middle initials and facial expressions to tell these guys apart.
There are plenty of Jeff Robinsons, but only one Mrs. Robinson. It's 2-2 to Vizcaíno.
Okay.
Outside, ball 3. 3-2 now to Jose Vizcaíno. Scoreless ball game, but the Cubs have Sammy Sosa on at third base and 2 outs here in the second inning. Little looper in the center. It could drop and does. Jose Vizcaíno with a ball off the end of the bat puts the Cubs in front here in the second inning as Sosa scores. 1-0 Chicago.
Sammy Sosa really the only one to hit the ball hard so far, and that was a grounder. This looked like another splitter down and away. Pretty good job by Vizcaíno on getting a pitcher's pitch. And he dunks one about 170 feet out into center field.
And Sosa scores, and Mike Morgan swings and misses. He's the pitcher. It's 0-1 to Mike.
But you just saw in that sequence why Sammy Sosa could be the Cubs leadoff man of the future. He manufactured a run with a base hit, a steal, tagged and went to third on a fly, and then scores on the little dunker.
Morgan lines to Gallagher in right field, but the Cubs take the lead. 1 run, a couple of hits, 1 left. It's 1-0 Chicago, middle of the second. We're back after this from your Tri-State Ford dealer. David Cone gave up a single to Sammy Sosa with 1 out, and Sosa stole second base. He went to third on a fly ball and scored on a little looping single to center field by Jose Vizcaíno, the third baseman. It's 1-0 Chicago. And the Cone heads have to be a little warm on a day like today. Not exactly my idea of keeping cool, wearing a...
Doesn't that kind of cancel each other out? A cone head with a visor?
Excellent point. Why bother, huh?
Yeah.
Nothing in one to Eddie Murray. 9 home runs on the year, 63 RBIs. He's 4th in the National League in ribbies. Inside, ball 1, 1-1. The leader in runs batted in, Darren Dalton. He has 76, 7 more, I beg your pardon, 10 more than Gary Sheffield. Grounded to first base, and Grace to Morgan. 4 in a row now, retired by Mike. And right fielder Dave Gallagher will be the batter.
Mike Morgan, a career record into this season of 67 and 104 losses. He had his first winning season last year when he went 14-10 for the Dodgers. We said he's been durable, never on the DL, and this will be his 3rd consecutive year with better than 200 innings thrown. When you play a lot of your games at Wrigley, you need somebody who can eat up innings. In the post-Sutcliffe era, this becomes a very important right-hander to the Chicago Cubs.
Eat up innings and keep the ball down for the most part, and both Morgan and Greg Maddux are the types of pitchers that throw a lot of ground balls. Another one off the glove of Sandberg, and what do you know, an error probably by Ryan Sandberg. It was a tough play, and it has to be for that guy to make a boot.
Well, the ball must have fooled him. We saw a grounder move very quickly by Sosa in the first inning to get through, and then this one ate up Ryan Sandberg, and that breaks his 60-game errorless streak as the Mets get a runner. You know, it's funny how things get automatic. I saw that play happen, Tim. I looked down at my scorebook and I've written down 4-3.
Yeah, you assume as much. That's right. Been a lot of 4-3s in his career. And in his first year, there were a lot of 5-3s because he was a 3rd baseman, a converted 2nd baseman. Not as far as his religious conviction is concerned, but as far as infield positions are concerned.
They believe in Chicago.
They do indeed. The splitter is outside to Todd Hundley. 1 ball, no strikes to Todd. 1 out, 1 on here in the 2nd inning. Todd batting .202, but he has 7 home runs on the year. Breaking ball outside, 2 balls and no strikes to Todd Hundley.
A couple of things of consolation here early to David Cone. The Mets have scored well in his last 2 wins. They've had about 7 runs a couple of times, and they've hit the ball fairly hard against Morgan so far. Remember, back to the first inning, Coleman and Magadan both robbed.
And Darrell Boston hitting a ball deep to left center field, hauled in by Derek May. 2 balls and 1 strike to Todd Hundley as Mike Cubbage, the 3rd base coach, flashes signs. There goes Gallagher, hit hard up the middle for a base hit. Gallagher will go to 3rd base. The throw by Sosa. Safe at 3rd. That Sosa had a play is remarkable with Gallagher, a fast runner running on the play. Wow.
It's almost as if Sammy Sosa was running along with Dave Gallagher, anticipating a throw to 2nd base from the catcher, maybe. In contrast to the way the Mets played a similar play last night on a pitch out. This one rifled up the middle. You assume Gallagher can walk over to 3rd, but look where Sosa is. He's got a strong arm. He bounces one in good shape over to Vizcaíno, but Gallagher went for the home plate side of the bag. Outstanding play by the center fielder to even make this close at all.
I will say. Whew. So the Mets with runners at 1st and 3rd, 1 out, and Willie Randolph coming up, and he takes a ball low. The play to which you are referring last night happened in the middle innings of game 2. Sosa stealing 2nd base. The Mets pitched out. The throw was an errant throw to the right field side. And Vince Coleman, the center fielder, by the time he got to the ball, Sosa scored. There's no way that play can happen. No way. Sammy Sosa scoring almost without a play at home plate. Now, Coleman was deep, but you can't be that deep and be in a position where you can at least make a play on a play, because you've got to be coming in when the runner runs if the ball goes through the hitting zone. 1-1 to Randolph. Hundley is not much of a threat to run. He does have a couple of stolen bases this year. One ball, one strike to Willie Randolph. One out. Runners at the corners. 1-0 Cubs here in the second. Outside, ball two. 2-1. Mike Morgan has allowed only 3 earned runs in his last 32 and a third innings. You're not going to get much off of him. Breaking ball is low. 3 balls and a strike.
And you've got to score when Ryan Sandberg makes an error, which happens about once every other month, to give the Mets a potential unearned run from the man at third base. Opportunities don't come up too often. And the Mets have been hitting the ball hard. They have every reason to be frustrated. They've hit the ball hard so far. They're scoreless. Cubs haven't, and they have a run on the board. This is when it's time to turn the tide.
Randolph takes ball 4. So Randolph walks. That loads him up with 1 man out, and Dick Schofield, the shortstop, is the batter.
A lot of possibilities here with the number 8 man. The bunt is always a possibility. Gallagher has good speed at third. The pitcher is due up next. Obviously, anything but a double play is okay, but the main thing is tie the ball game, whatever it takes.
This is one of those dilemmas in baseball. If you're a pitcher, you want the batter to hit the ball hard enough on the ground at an infielder for a double play to be completed. You don't want him to hit the ball easy on the ground, because if he does, a run's going to score. And that's what happened. A high chopper. Schofield safe at first base, and that's what happened. He got a slow roller, and the Mets get a run. 1-1 ball game.
A pitch away from Mike Morgan. And one of the things that helps is the big lead that Willie Randolph has. He's right after the shortstop, but Schofield's hustle is what got the RBI. Ball was hit right off the end of the bat. Sandberg got it to his shortstop. Sanchez in good shape, and now David Cone with a chance. Another runner over at third as Hundley moved over there.
0-1 to David Cone. So Schofield with 10 ribbies in his last 11 games. It's RBI number 23 for Dick on the year, and a nice play by Rick Wilkins on the ball in the dirt. 1-1 to Cone. You think about that situation with the bases loaded and 1 out, a close ball game. You don't want to throw it to the fat part of the plate and make him hit it hard, but you want him to hit it hard enough to complete the double play. Schofield didn't, and the Mets scored a run in unusual fashion. 1-2 now to David Cone.
And if Cone can somehow help himself here, all the scoring in the inning, no matter what happens here, will be unearned, because the third out of the inning should have already taken place given Sandberg's error earlier. So really a free at bat and a free out for the Mets here.
That's a bad throw to first base. There is no way that Dick Schofield's running with Cone batting. One wouldn't think Certainly be a bad play unless the Mets try to steal a run. But Cone goes down on strikes. The Mets score a run. It's 1-1. Chicago and New York, cities 1 and 2. We'll be back after this from Acura. On that throw to try to get Dave Gallagher at third base, Sammy Sosa appeared to have injured his right bicep. It was a fine throw. Sosa charging with Gallagher running on the play and making a close play out of what everybody thought was going to be a sure thing. The Mets scored 1 time in the second. It's 1-1, and Ray Sanchez takes a breaking ball for strike 1. Sanchez flied to right his first at bat. Another curve is high. 1-1 to Ray. Wicked breaking ball. A ball and 2 strikes now to Sanchez, the shortstop of the Cubs. Two balls and 2 strikes to Ray Sanchez. An off day tomorrow, and then the Mets go to Pittsburgh for 2 and Chicago for 4. Sanchez down on strikes. That's strikeout number 1 for Cone in this game, and strikeout number 187 on the year. Should say the Mets, that is the regular season. The Mets do play in the Hall of Fame game tomorrow against the Chicago White Sox. Leaving today after the game. Sandberg goes too far. That was about the pitch on which he swung and made contact his first at bat, looping one into left field for a single. Darrell Boston had a tough time coming up with it. He was on second on a single and an error, but he stayed there as Grace flied out and Andre Dawson flied out. 1-1 to Ryne Sandberg. Ball and 2 strikes now.
Sandberg very consistent, a .291 hitter last year. Got to .300 with that base hit his last time up. He doesn't waver a whole lot. You never see him down in the 250s or 260s. Maybe early. He struggles a bit in April. But when about the middle of May rolls around, he gets the average up, and then he's there the rest of the year to stay.
Foul back. Still 1-2 to Rhino.
Cubs, of course, have been lobbying against going to the Western Division with St. Louis. I just wonder if Sandberg would start out a lot better if he played a lot in L.A. and San Diego that first month, as opposed to the cold and wet cities of the East. You don't make a move, though, for one guy, but it would be interesting to see.
He hammers this one to left field, and it's foul. Cone got up with the splitter, and you don't make a mistake on Sandberg without paying for it too often. But it's still 1-2 as that ball hooked foul. Certainly seems reasonable that that would possibly solve Sandberg's dilemma of starting slowly. Fly ball center field, right center. Coleman drifting over, and now it's Gallagher who makes the play. That ball drifting a lot farther than we initially thought. 2 outs here in the 3rd inning. Remember, fans, when you're having good times with good friends, please drink responsibly, because friends know when to say when. A reminder from your friends at Budweiser. 2 outs, nobody on here in the 3rd inning, and Mark Grace is the batter. He flied to center his first at bat, and he takes the splitter high, ball 1.
Well, some bad news for Bobby Bonilla. He is headed to the disabled list, expected to be out 2 weeks with a non-displaced fracture of the 9th rib on his right side.
Oh, boy. Well, we talked about it immediately. And of course, we're not venturing into the medical area, but I would think that that would be a broken rib would be better than a rib pull if the pull was serious enough. This one hit deep to right field. Back is Gallagher, and it's over his head. It short hops the fence, and Mark Grace pulls into second with his 24th double of the year.
Well, evidently the lesson learned on the last fly ball did not convince Dave Gallagher. He started drifting back for this thing, and it just kept going. Now, ironically, the flag is now moving toward the left field corner, but this ball hit by Grace fools Gallagher. You saw him momentarily stop, and he thought he was at the point where he could slow down and catch it right there. And then he realizes, uh-oh, short hops the wall, and that ball had a carry on it of about 365 feet.
If you're at Wrigley Field in Chicago and you check the flags would be legitimate. Here at Shea Stadium, you check that center field flag, and if it's blowing one way, it could mean the wind's blowing the other because of the horseshoe structure here at Shea Stadium. Willie Mays telling me that center field was the toughest position to play at Shea Stadium more than any other ballpark, and that's remarkable considering the fact that most of his career he played at Candlestick. 0-2 now to Dawson. Grace at second, 2 outs, 1-1 here in the third.
It must be something to do with the height of the grandstand being so very high, because American League center fielders are now saying the same thing about the new Comiskey Park, and it, like Shea, is built with the field on ground level. It's not dug into the ground at all, and it's a very high structure as well.
Did he go too far? No, says first base umpire Tom Hallian. Yeah, both stadiums horseshoe shaped.
And both of them, the field is the same level as the street outside, not dug into the ground like some. Dawson had the bat out there, but he had it back, had that barrel back enough.
Close.
At least, according to Tom Hallian.
Way outside, so 4 breaking balls from Cohen. The count is 2-2 to Andre Dawson.
I've heard some umpires, Tim, explain that call, that if they see the barrel of the bat point directly toward them out there at first base, they consider that far enough. Dawson didn't go quite that far.
Low with the splitter, 3 balls and 2 strikes. Line drive right side, and Willie Randolph makes the catch. The Cubs do not score in the third inning. It's still 1-1. The Mets coming up after this from your Tri-State Toyota dealer.
And the guy they call the ultimate, Tom Seaver, Hall of Fame night coming up here at the ballpark Tuesday, August 11th. And prior to the 7:40 game against the Pirates, special on-field ceremonies, including the presentation of Tom's Hall of Fame ring. In addition, all fans will receive a commemorative Leroy Neiman poster of Tom Seaver, courtesy of Chemical Bank. What a great keepsake that will be. Get your tickets now by calling Ticketmaster 212-307-METS to charge tickets, or for more information, call 718-507-TIXX. Tom Seaver Hall of Fame night, a week from Tuesday, number 41 honored on his Field of Dreams. Shea.
One of 3 numbers honored by the Mets: Casey Stengel, number 37, and Gil Hodges, number 14. That young man appears to be ready for nap time. Vince Coleman, the batter, he grounded to third. A fine play by Jose Vizcaíno in the first inning, and he takes a strike. Foul back, 0-2. Bobby Bonilla on the disabled list. A diving try for a ball in the first inning. And it's the first time in his career that he will be on the disabled list. We talked about how durable he was earlier.
And you mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast how durable Mike Morgan is, also never having gone on a DL. 1-2 to Coleman.
So much talk these days about mechanics and fitness. It's probably the most complex thing in the world of sports. A pitcher's shoulder, elbow, leg drive, and all that energy up through the body. Remarkable to pitch that long.
Grounded just foul down the third base line. Still a ball and 2 strikes now to Vince Coleman.
And let's face it, these days, Tim, players go on the DL more than they used to. Clubs consider them larger investments, and if there's any problem at all, an owner, a general manager, wants that man out and resting 2 weeks to make sure they don't lose him for a longer period.
Way outside, 2-2. Club owners are perhaps more sensitive. Agents are perhaps more sensitive. And players are perhaps less tolerant of pain, not knowing the difference between an injury and pain. Strike 3 called on the inside corner. Coleman does not agree, but that ball appeared to have a good part of the plate. 1 out here in the third.
On the Macy's National League scoreboard, the Cardinals are playing at Pittsburgh today, and that is Cormier and Tomlin throwing, scoreless at Three Rivers. Phillies are at Montreal. Rivera and Nabholz. Chris Nabholz 6-7 for the Expos. Scoreless at Cincinnati are the Astros, and the Braves will play 2 at San Francisco later. The Padres will play later at Dodger Stadium.
Dave Magadan, the batter, and he takes a strike. Of course, Bobby Bonilla's injury is legitimate. It is a break, and are we implying that there are some less legitimate injuries around? Well, I am. Breaking ball for a strike, 0-2 now to Magadan. It's strange that in baseball, as the salaries go up, the playing periods of players and the playing time of players go down, and that's unbelievable, and I don't quite understand that. Breaking ball outside, 1-2. Used to be guys on one-year contracts who had to perform for next year as well as this year, and I think that is one of the shortcomings of the long-term contract. I don't think there's any question about that, or that too many people argue that point.
Tim, these days players are insulted if they're in the last year of their contract and a team will not renegotiate or extend them for next year. There's a man who's very unhappy with the Cubs right now, Andre Dawson, because they will not extend his contract into next season and beyond. Cubs say he's 37 years old, has bad knees. Yeah, he's been a great player for us, but let's wait till the end of the season to reevaluate, especially with expansion coming up. But the player's very unhappy about it.
Dave Magadan grounds one to left field for the second Met hit. It looked like Ray Sanchez, the shortstop, broke the wrong way. Looked like he broke to the left and the ball hit to his right.
On the Toyota American League scoreboard, Yankees are 3-1 leaders early. They're throwing Scott Sanderson at Toronto after getting bombed this weekend. Baltimore, Boston scoreless. Detroit leads Cleveland early. Milwaukee and Minnesota. The Twins lead Oakland by a game and a half in the West. No score at Comiskey Park, and later the A's will play at Kansas City and the Angels will play a night game at Texas.
Darryl Boston now the batter, and he lifts one to center field. Socia moves back and makes the catch. 2 outs here in the third.
Probably the best pitching matchup in baseball today, other than this game with Cone and Morgan, is that California-Texas game tonight when Mark Langston, who's thrown well lately, he's 9-9, takes on 14-7 Kevin Brown, the All-Star winner.
Eddie Murray, the batter, almost the All-Star winner by default. Take a 4-run lead in the bottom of the first inning and pitch 1 inning and you win the ball game.
I saw Kevin in Boston the other night and I said, hey, nice going in San Diego, and he just kind of rolled his eyes.
Hey, he'll take it, right?
Hey, 20 years from now it'll be one of the great All-Star performances of all time.
That's
when
right.
He tells his grandkids about it.
1-0 to Eddie Murray. Ball 2. You know, you talked about Andre Dawson, and Andre wearing a brace before the games. He takes batting practice in a huge brace, warming up with that brace. And if I were negotiating or wanted to negotiate a contract, I'm not too sure I would wear a brace that big on the outside of my uniform.
At least put it inside.
Yeah, right.
They call that's a stabilizer. It braces the knee and keeps the kneecap from floating around. It's got a hole in it right where the kneecap fits, and it keeps everything stable in the knee. Dawson has had 5 different knee operations. Cal Daniels 7.
Oh my goodness. Deep to right field, and it's off of the soda sign. 3-1 New York. One of our sponsors, Coca-Cola Classic, and that was a classic home run by Eddie Murray. Oh, baby.
I think he almost knocked an ice cube out of the Diet Coke glass out there. Eddie Murray with his 10th of the year. RBIs 64 and 65. Number 408. He is, of course, entrenched as he moved past Duke Snider recently. This was a fastball up, and Mike Morgan will tell you, I think I threw a batting practice fastball. And there's a batting practice result right out beyond the bullpen. And a nice grab in the pen as well, as Eddie Murray now moves over Fred McGriffin right behind Gary Sheffield into that number 3 RBI spot.
With 65 on the year, that's home run number 10 for Murray. I mean, he hammered that one.
Well, to that point on the outfield wall, it's about 365 feet. Scoreboard area is probably another 25 to 30 feet beyond that.
That is only the 7th home run given up by Mike Morgan all year. Ball and 2 strikes to Gallagher.
Mackie Sasser out there. Ball hits behind him, hits off the scoreboard. He says, I've got it.
Oh, hum, huh, Mackie? Mackie's got his business partner with him. Look at that. Carries his bat around. Grounded hard off the glove of Vizcaíno. I would assume that's another error on the Cubs, both on balls hit by Dave Gallagher.
Uncharacteristically boot by the Cubs today. They've done that twice now, both with Gallagher hitting. And this is a ball club that made only 4 errors their first 13 games after the All-Star break when the Cubs got hot. Ball came up, looked like it hit the glove right in the pocket. He had to run too far and then decided to eat the ball. And the Mets have another runner with 2 outs in this inning.
Todd Hundley singled his first at bat. The Mets with 3 hits, the Cubs with 4, but New York leads 3-1. High to Hundley. Mention only the 7th home run given up by Mike Morgan. The Cubs have given up the fewest home runs in the National League. They've also given up the fewest earned runs in the National League. However, the downside of the ledger on the offensive side, they have scored the fewest runs in the National League.
All those statistics pretty much defy the Wrigley Field logic that you'll score a lot and give up a lot.
Yep. It's usually the other way around. 2 balls and no strikes now to Todd Hundley. Nice play by Wilkins. There's a strike. 2 balls and a strike to Todd Hundley. I said 2-1. It was 3-1, and now it's a full count, 3-2, and Dave Gallagher will be off with the pitch. There goes Gallagher, and the curve is rifled foul. So Gallagher will retreat to first base. And will do it again. Beautiful day here at Shea. 84 degrees at game time. The wind has picked up. It is a lovely, lovely afternoon. And a nice crowd on hand, as you can see. Ball 4. Hundley walks. Gallagher moves to second base, and with 2 on and 2 out, Willie Randolph will come up. We mentioned the Wrigley Field formula. Mike Morgan this year at Wrigley Field is 8-1 with a remarkable 1.34 earned run average. He's allowed only 16 earned runs at Wrigley Field this year in 107 2/3 innings. Slider for a strike. Breaking ball hit hard to left field, but Derek May is right there. The Mets scored 2 times on a 2-run homer by Eddie Murray, and they lead it 3-1. We go to the 4th after this from Roy Rogers. Eddie Murray's two-run homer in the bottom of the 3rd inning, his 10th home run of the year. RBIs number 64 and 65 for Eddie. Gives the Mets a lead here in the top of the 4th. And in to take you through the next couple innings, here's Bob Carpenter.
Thanks very much, Tim, and it's good to see that happen after the futility the middle of the Mets order suffered through last night. Their big hitters 1 for 27, ouch, in the doubleheader. Today's Budweiser Mets Dream Sweepstakes contestant is Joseph Guyton of Brooklyn, New York. And we'd like to tell Joseph that he has until the end of today's game to call 201-348-4462 in order to win a handheld Watchman TV. Remember, Joseph, 201-348-4462 before the end of the game in order to win your prize. And good luck from Budweiser, the Mets, and Channel 9. Derek May, top of the 4th. David Cone. And a base hit right field on a fastball up around the letters. Derek May, a left fielder playing in place of Cal Daniels, who's one of those guys that has trouble playing day games after night games, especially a doubleheader sometimes. Daniels 5 knee surgeries. Andre Dawson has had 7. Leadoff man aboard, and here comes the exciting Sammy Sosa again. Sammy with a base hit, a steal, and a run scored back in the 2nd inning when the Cubs took the lead. Mets tied it with an unearned run in the bottom and then took the lead in the bottom of the 3rd on Eddie Murray's long 2-run homer. Sosa came up with Texas in '89 when he was only 20 years old. Then he was involved in a big trade with Scott Fletcher and Wilson Alvarez that brought Harold Baines to Texas. And as Tim mentioned earlier, then involved in the George Bell trade.
Everybody talks about the outfielders that the San Francisco Giants ran through their organization, and they did indeed do that in the 60s. What about the outfielders the Texas Rangers have come up with?
Well, that's one of the reasons they made the trade. They needed a left-handed DH. They had Ruben Sierra.
Juan Gonzalez.
Juan Gonzalez was in the minor leagues at that time, but Sosa was considered, even though Sosa was with the big club, on the depth chart, ironically, he was considered behind Gonzalez, even though Juan, I think, was at AAA that particular year. He was biding time until they could put Gonzalez in the outfield. They still had Pete Incaviglia then, who was still on Bobby Valentine's good side at that point.
And they weren't sure whether Dean Palmer was going to play 3rd base or the outfield.
Still had Buechele.
Yeah, and still had Buechele.
A talent-rich organization that's looking for pitching. But everybody they talk to wants one of those young players. One ball and 2 strikes to Sammy Sosa. Tough to double up if Cone gets the ground ball. Sosa has hit the only ground ball against Cone today. It was up the middle for a base hit. Everything else has been in the air. with 1 strikeout. David has been around the plate much better than he was in his last start in Philly on Tuesday night. He walked a man, hit a batter in the first inning when the Mets botched a double play ball. Darren Dalton hit him for a grand slam. Cone walked 4 and struck out 9 in 7 innings. And Sosa hits one deep. If it's fair, it's gone, and it's to the foul side of the pole. Up into the mezzanine, and Cone, for the 2nd time in this game, Sandberg earlier, narrowly escapes giving up a home run.
This is a hanger right here, and Sosa just misses a home run. You've heard of Cy Young? Oh, that's a sigh of a different kind right there.
Sigh of relief.
That ball was almost sayonara.
Yeah, you're reading my mind there too. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Big breaking ball hit off the end of the bat, and Darryl Boston only has to move over a little to his left to make that play 1 out.
That just shows you about location too, Bob, that when Cone had dropped down on that pitch before, the one he just missed the home run on, it was the middle of the plate slider. The last one was on the outside corner. He hits it off the end of the bat. Location and movement get hitters out more than anything, more than any other two things.
There's the hanger, middle of the plate, and the slider, outer half. Rick Wilkins steps in. Joe Girardi considered a little better defensively than Wilkins, but the Cubs like the pop in this guy's left-handed bat. He has 4 homers, 10 RBIs. He's only been up there 95 times this year. He's been up and down with the AAA Iowa Ball Club a bit. And the count 2-0. He's hit Met pitching very well. Looked like Cone dipped one down and away from him a little bit, took one off, took a little bit off, and now it's 2 balls and a strike. You like this Cubs lineup though when Buechele is healthy, and they've got Sosa in there. They are a vastly improved club offensively than they were just a couple of weeks ago before they made the Danny Jackson deal. They felt that with Mike Harkey coming back from rehab, they could afford to let go of Jackson, who had been a huge Chicago disappointment anyway.
And you might be thinking, well, how in the world can the Pittsburgh Pirates let Buechele go? Well, they needed a left-hander with Zane Smith out. And the Pirates have a young third baseman playing for Buffalo, their AAA affiliate. His name is Kevin Young, and he is a dandy from what Jim Leland has told me. So therefore, Buechele was expendable.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Rather unusual for a guy signed to a long-term contract before the year started.
Well, see, if you don't sign him, then you lose him without getting Danny Jackson. That's the thing. So even if a club plans on keeping a player, you might as well go ahead and sign him rather than lose him, because then you can get a player for him and somebody else gets the contract that you signed him for.
Buechele told me it sent him the wrong message, though. He thought he would be in Pittsburgh for a long time, and then he was traded a half season later. Big breaking ball at the letters, and Wilkins is gone. Strikeout number 2 for David Cone, and that's the 2nd out here in the top of the 4th. Buechele, in fact, asked Jim Leland 2 weeks before the deal was made. He had heard all of the rumors. He said, am I going to be traded? You know, the skipper didn't know what to tell him at that time, and 2 weeks later, transaction completed. Here's Jose Vizcaíno, who dumped one into center field his first time for an RBI single. Vizcaíno playing third base today. He has seen some action at shortstop since Sean Dustin went out with that herniated disc in his back. Ray Sanchez is out there today. So Vizcaíno got off the interstate with that first base hit. Went from I-99 to 202 and has his 10th RBI.
He's still on the service road, though.
Yeah, the Mendoza line runs right down the middle of that road. Runner going, pitch down, throw by Hundley right there, and he got him. Right on the bag with a BB from Todd Hundley. And the Cubs are gone in the top of the 4th. That was some throw. The location was perfect. And after 3.5, Mets 3, Cubs 1. We're back after a word from Nobody Beats the Wiz. Cubs have out-hit the Mets 5-3, but New York leads Chicago 3-1. Bottom of the 4th coming up. And down around the bottom of the Mets batting order, Dick Schofield, followed by David Cone and Vince Coleman. Mike Morgan, and it's a bunt. It looks good. Charging Vizcaíno, no play. And Schofield bunts his way on. He deadened the ball perfectly about 40 feet up the line.
That's the one thing about bunting against a guy who throws a heavy sinker. You can bunt with the full knowledge that you don't have to deaden the ball by bringing the bat back. Just make contact, and the ball will deaden itself. That was a perfectly executed bunt by Dick Schofield. See, that's a fat part of the bat bunt. There was no bringing it back or anything, but indication of that sinker that Morgan throws.
Grace has a play at second. They might turn 2, but Cone beats the relay. David Cone got the ball too far directly at Mark Grace, and being a left-handed first baseman, it was a natural motion for him to throw right over to the shortstop. So it'll go 3-6 on the fielder's choice. So 1 on, 1 out here at Shea. Mets on top 3-1, and today's game brought to you in part by Nobody Beats the Wiz Home Entertainment Centers. For everything in home electronics, music, and movies, nobody beats the Wiz. And by your Nissan dealers, who challenge you to find a better car or a better deal. Bob Carpenter at Shea with Tim McCarver. And we send our best to Ralph up in Cooperstown today on the Hall of Fame festivities.
Ralph will have a chance to see the Mets tomorrow when they play the White Sox.
The other night in Philadelphia, Ralph had a very delightful visit with old Whitey, Richie Ashburn of the Phillies, who should probably be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, in my opinion.
And that will be our Kiner's Corner later today, and you will enjoy that. They got together and had a great time at Veterans Stadium the other night. Vince Coleman at the top of the order. He's 0 for 2 with a ground out, robbed on a good play by Vizcaíno over at third, and then caught looking at a 2-strike fastball 1 inning ago. High chopper out to Sandberg, and they'll go 4-6-3. The Cubs turned their 97th of the year. The Mets hit into their 98th, and that's it for the 4th inning. 1 hit, nobody stranded. It's Mets 3, Cubs 1 after 4, and here's a word from Bud Light. Mets fans, young and old, looking forward to the top of the 5th. 3-1, New York leading Chicago, and this copyrighted telecast is authorized under television rights granted by Sterling AA Enterprises LP solely for the entertainment of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, or use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of Sterling AA Enterprises LP and WWOR-TV is prohibited. Any commercial or other use of the program, such as by charging admission for its showing, is likewise prohibited. David Cone set to go back to work. Jose Vizcaíno was at the plate when Todd Hundley gunned out Derek May, stealing to end the top of the 4th inning.
Appropriate term, gunned out.
Whew, that was a shot. We saw a couple of good locations in that inning. The slider by Cone that got Sosa on the fly ball, and the fastball by Hundley that was right on the bag. This shot in front of Dave Gallagher, and the Cubs have their leadoff man aboard for the 2nd consecutive time.
Vizcaíno with his first major league home run, as we mentioned earlier, in last night's 2nd game of the doubleheader. He had gone 446 at bats before homering. the leader among active players of at-bats without a home run. Alex Cole of the Pittsburgh Pirates with 782.
Morgan with a bunt. Cone looks to second, throws to first to Willie Randolph, and Mike Morgan does what David Cone couldn't do a half inning ago. He sacrifices his man over to second with one out.
You could see Todd Hundley pointing to first base all the way. There's no way with a 2-run lead, when a pitcher's trying to bunt one man over, that you take a chance. Look at Hundley at the bottom of your screen. You see Cone had an idea about going to second, but Hundley's saying first, 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 and he's right in saying that.
Often overlooked facets of catching, calling every pitch, calling the ball game, and also running the infield defense.
Especially when everything's in front of him. He's the only guy who has everything in front of him on a play like that.
Hitter, catcher, umpire, the only guys facing the other way. Top of the order, Ray Sanchez. And a first pitch pop-up out into short center. Randolph out, Coleman in, and Vince at the last moment will call Willie off the ball. Randolph did the right thing. He has to go out to catch the ball until he's told to get out of there.
Obviously an easier play for an outfielder who's coming in on the ball, but Coleman waiting until the last minute. Randolph does all he can, but then he gets out of the way at the last minute, and Coleman makes the catch.
Now 2 outs and the runner at second for Ryne Sandberg. Good breaking ball to the outside corner. Ryne Sandberg dumped a single into left field in the first inning, flied to right in the third. So he's probably hitting .299 now. Another breaking ball. Sandberg reaching again, and this one about 10 rows back.
I don't think there are too many hitters that adjust any better than Sandberg does. You just can't pitch him the same way all the time. So Cone has thrown 2 breaking balls to get him in the hole, 0-2, and usually you have to either knock him back off the plate or go a little wider with the breaking ball. Looks like a fastball away.
And it's well away for ball 1.
So the Mets are using their second signs with the second sign with the runner at second base. The second sign Hundley put down was the pinky to the outside. Looks like a slider here.
Correctly called and correctly hit into left field. Vizcaíno around third. He will score. And Ryne Sandberg hanging in there against the Cone breaking ball as his second hit of the day, and what a weekend for Ryne Sandberg. It's now Mets 3, Cubs 2.
And that's what we were talking about. You throw Sandberg 2 sliders away and you get him in the hole and you think you got him. The fastball away and now the slider away. You just got to mix up his eye level right here. All 4 pitches away, and Sandberg looking away that last time, and gets enough of it to hammer it to left field.
Mark Grace is next, and a fastball right down the middle to him. With 2 outs and the bases empty in the third, Grace pulled a double down the right field side, actually over the head of Gallagher. Light out in the first. Came in as the league's number 5 hitter at .315. Batting race shaped up in the top 5 with John Kruk at .344, Andy Van Slyke .336, Gary Sheffield .328. Rhett Butler on a tear. 3 hits yesterday, .318, and then Mark Grace. Butler hit over 400 in July and got 3 hits the first day of August. Now there's a leadoff man.
He is having a terrific year with all the Dodgers are going through. They have not finished last since 1905. The way they're playing, they could well finish last this year.
2.5 back of Houston at the start of the day. Grace was out ahead of that one. And a one-hopper to Willie Randolph, but the Cubs get a run on 2 hits. They've stranded 4 runners now, and we're halfway through at Shea. Gorgeous day. This one too close to call. 3-2 Mets. Here's a word from New York telephone. Before today's game, Dave Magadan was honored as the MetLife Met of the Month for July. Mr. Edward Bizak, agency vice president at MetLife, presented the award to Dave, who hit .309, 9 RBIs, 16 walks during July. And in connection with the award, MetLife will donate $1,000 to Dave's assigned charity, No Small Affair. Congratulations to Dave Magadan for winning July's MetLife Met of the Month. He's the leadoff man. Boston and Murray to follow, bottom of the 5th inning, and here's Tim.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. 0-1 now to Dave Magadan. Dave is 1 for 2. He scored in front of Eddie Murray's 2-run homer in the 3rd inning. 3-2 New York. Inside corner. 0-2. That ball comes back from Morgan. The inside fastball to left-handers. When a left-hander picks it up, it's inside, but it has that late tail on it. Way inside to low. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Dave Magadan.
Eddie Murray in April. This will be the 2nd time Dave Magadan's won the award. And of course, Bobby Bonilla got hot in the month of June and won the MetLife Met of the Month award.
2-2 to Magadan.
And Eddie Murray's got a leg up in August with that 2-run homer earlier. He did not have a good July. Good to see him off to a start today.
Magadan did not go. 3-2. I wonder where that term came from. A leg up. I am interested in the origination of strange terms like that.
Well, maybe Olympic high jumping, although you got to get both legs over the bar.
Ground ball right side and through there. So Magadan with the leg up on Mike Morgan. He has 2 hits on the afternoon. Of course, they don't high jump the way they used to either now, do they? They have a tendency to jump and go over
everything. The Fosbury
flop.
Yeah,
right.
Dick Fosbury.
Right. Hands go up, the back bends. So really, that doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So now it's arms up.
It's the way you got an arm up on a guy.
You have an arm up or 2 arms up instead of a leg up. One leg up in horse racing, maybe at the finish line. 1 leg up, extended.
Might be the difference in a photo finish.
Yeah. 0-1 to Darrell Boston. One to Boston. 3-2 New York. 5 hits for the Mets, 7 for the Cubs. Cubs have committed 2 errors. 1 an extremely rare error by Ryne Sandberg, his first in the last 2 months. Good fastball there. Boston looking somewhere else. It's a ball and 2 strikes to Darrell.
Mike Morgan will throw about 3 different kinds of fastballs. The 4-seamer that'll run. He'll throw the heavy sinker that Tim alluded to. Plus he has a split finger pitch. He's got a good breaking ball, and control has been a big part of Mike Morgan's repertoire for a long time. Doesn't walk people very often.
Still 1-2 to Boston. Bottom of the 5th inning. Nice crowd on hand. A lovely, lovely day. And if the Mets are to make a run at it, they're in 4th place in the National League East, 5.5 behind the Pirates. They will have to have an August. Grounded foul. Morgan shaking his head out there and obviously dissatisfied either in the pitch selection or the way he's gripping his curveball. High, ball 2, 2-2 to Boston. Don't realize how big Mike Morgan is until you get next to him. He is a big guy, 205, 6'1". Cued back to Morgan. The throw to second, and Sandberg covering late. The Cubs looked confused on the switch as Sanchez was going for the ball, and Sandberg, who wasn't covering originally, covered late. 1 out.
You're absolutely right. It's almost as if the shortstop was the cover man, because Boston is supposed to pull the ball over to the other side. So it's a long way for Sandberg, who is playing Darryl, to pull.
On the curveball especially, he's getting an off-speed pitch.
So, Tim, you get the impression there that that was a serious mistake by Sanchez, and only the genius of Sandberg covered up the mistake to result in the force out.
Well, Sanchez was going for the ball. He didn't know at the time. It was one of those plays where one guy was supposed to cover, but because of where the ball was hit, he had to commit there. Sandberg, that's one of those situations, I think, where there was understandable confusion.
Now watch, this ball is hit to the shortstop's side of the mound. It's hit softly, and there you see Sanchez coming straight in. Sandberg about 3 steps from the bag when he received the throw.
That open mouth right there, meaning that Sanchez would cover should Boston be running. He didn't bother to cover then, and Boston is running, and Sanchez covers not in time.
Throw was a little bit high from Wilkins, and that's all Darryl needed for his 7th of the year in 10 attempts. Sandberg says, "You've got it." Low and away. Wilkins comes up firing. If his throw is down, Boston is out. But with Sanchez having to reach, Boston gets in there. Now he's got a chance for third.
And he makes it standing up as the ball squirts away from Rick Wilkins. So with the count 2 balls and a strike, the Cubs will have to move their infield in for Eddie Murray. A wild pitch on Morgan, his 8th wild pitch of the year.
Not the way Jim Lefever's team has been playing and winning 8 of 10 in 10 of their last 14.
Way outside with a curve, 3-1. Murray, a home run his last time up. Another curve, strike 2, 3-2 to Eddie Murray. Fastball, line foul down the left field line. Way outside, so Murray walks. You kind of tell that Morgan was not that concerned if he walked Murray, because now instead of Bobby Bonilla coming up, the Mets will have Dave Gallagher coming up. If you happen to miss the early part of the game, Bobby Bonilla broke rib number 9 on this play.
A non-displaced fracture of the 9th rib on his right side, as right there he hits the ground on the warning track very hard on a foul ball by Andre Dawson. Gallagher up for the 3rd time in Bobby's place.
And Davis hit the ball well twice. He hit the ball on which the other end was an error each at bat. An error by Ryan Sandberg in the 2nd, and an error by the 3rd baseman Jose Vizcaíno in the 3rd. Bit surprised to see Murray being held on in this situation. Gallagher could go the other way. Murray has not had but one attempt this year at stealing a base. Fly ball, center field. Sosa back. This should score Boston, and it will, as Darryl Boston crosses home, and it's now 4-2. New York leads.
Boston's speed helps out. Stoll second. Catcher Wilkins unable to handle a breaking ball by Mike Morgan for a wild pitch, and then the run home on the sacrifice fly, and the Mets get back the run the Cubs got in the top of the inning.
Those are the types of runs that the Mets have a very difficult time scoring. As Todd Hundley takes a curve for a strike, 0-1 to Todd. He is singled and walked.
And you saw the Cardinals yesterday, Tim. They've had the same problem.
Yeah.
We've seen Montreal leapfrog through the standings because they have been scoring those kinds of runs with their speed, moving runners around and getting guys home from 3rd with less than 2 out.
The St. Louis Cardinals have had a run where of the last 53 runners that have been at 3rd base with less than 2 out, 12 have scored. That's remarkable.
It's both amazing and awful at the same time.
It is.
Joe Torre with the team not manufacturing a lot of runs, and they're scoreless in the 7th inning today against Randy Tomlin. That has to drive a skipper crazy.
St. Louis has scored 1 earned run against the Pittsburgh Pirates in the last 54 innings. That is about 6 ball games. 1 earned run. Tough to win that way. It's 0-0 at Three Rivers this afternoon, and it's 3 balls and a strike to Todd Hundley. So with the count 3-2, Eddie Murray will be running. Mark Grace moves behind Eddie at first base. We're in the 5th inning. It's 4-2 New York. There goes Murray, and this one grounded toward first. Easy play for Grace, and he steps on the bag. But the Mets get a run back on only 1 hit. They strand a runner and lead 4-2 after 5. We'll be back after this from AT&T. Top of the 6th inning, 4-2 Met lead. This game highlighted by 2-run home run by Eddie Murray. That was the first Met home run in a week. A 2-run shot in the 3rd inning. There have been 3 errors in the ball game, and usually when teams stay up late, they've had a doubleheader last night. A lot of times your play is a little sluggish the next day. I mean, after all, this is the 3rd game in 24 hours for these 2 teams. As Andre Dawson takes a fastball outside, ball 1. One and 1 to Dawson. He is lined to second and flied to left. Wow. Ball and 2 strikes. Got him. Third strikeout for David Cone.
And that a pretty strong pattern right there. Up and in with some fastballs, and most power hitters will have a hole in their swing up and in when you've got that kind of heat. And then with Dawson maybe just back on the balls of his feet a little bit, Cone paints one toward the outside corner, and Andre can't reach it.
Power pitching to a power hitter. Here's Derek May, the left fielder, and the splitter misses, ball one. May 1 for 2. Cal Daniels scheduled to start the game, but May inserted in the lineup about a half hour before game time. 2 balls and no strikes to the son of former major leaguer Dave May. Makes his home in Newark, Delaware. Two and one. Funny, in New Jersey pronounce it Newark, and in Delaware they pronounce it Newark. Don't know the reason why the New Jersey folks have a different pronunciation from Delaware folks. The spelling is the same.
Well, that's out.
Do you happen to know that?
No, but out in my part of the country, there's an Arkansas City, Kansas.
Oh.
They're not about to call it Arkansas City. So
Arkansas City.
Yeah. So
I know of Kansas City, but not Arkansas City. They have an Arkansas City, Kansas?
Yeah.
Wow. It's strange. They don't know whether to call it Arkansas or Kansas City. I mean, these people have an identity crisis.
Well, I know
evidently.
I know one thing. You've never done a game there.
No, I haven't. And I hope I never do a game in Arkansas City, Kansas. I have nothing against the people of Kansas or Arkansas City. I just don't want to do a game there, okay? 1 on, 1 out here in the 6th inning.
Tom Seaver, we've been looking at some of his career highlights throughout the afternoon. He got number 300 pitching for the White Sox at Yankee Stadium, 311 overall. And look at that vote percentage. Almost 99%, the highest ever.
Sammy Sosa fouls it back. 0-1 to Sosa, who is 1 for 2 with a run scored.
You know, 2 years ago, Tim, I was in Cooperstown when Joe Morgan and Jim Palmer were inducted, 2 outstanding players. And it rained and rained and rained. And Joe said that he didn't really realize what he was getting into until he sat down at the Hall of Famers only banquet. Nobody invited except the living members of the Hall of Fame. And he's sitting down to have dinner with those guys. He said that's when it hits you what you've gotten yourself into. You know, he said you go through the induction ceremony. Tom Seaver, we've been looking at some of his career highlights throughout the afternoon. He got number 300 pitching for the White Sox at Yankee Stadium, 311 overall. And look at that vote percentage. Almost 99%, the highest ever.
Sammy Sosa fouls it back. 0-1 to Sosa, who is 1 for 2 with a run scored.
You know, 2 years ago, Tim, I was in Cooperstown when Joe Morgan and Jim Palmer were inducted, 2 outstanding players. And it rained and rained and rained. And Joe said that he didn't really realize what he was getting into until he sat down at the Hall of Famers only banquet. Nobody invited except the living members of the Hall of Fame. And he's sitting down to have dinner with those guys. He said that's when it hits you what you've gotten yourself into. You know, he said you go through the induction ceremony and you give your speech and all that, but when you're in the same room with these guys and the doors are closed behind you and it's just that elite group, that's when you know it's something that's very extraordinary.
It is a feeling that few people experience. Only I think the number's about 211 now in the Hall of Fame. That could be low, but not that low. 0-2 to Sosa. High, ball 1. Got him on strikes. Sosa goes for the breaking ball. There are now 2 outs. Cohn has 4 strikeouts. And the Mets have the lead 4-2. David Cohn going for victory number 13 on the year.
And another excellent pitching pattern. There's no way with 2 strikes you throw a fastball for a strike to Sammy Sosa. You waste a fastball, and then you get him on the hook away because he is a strikeout swinger.
Rick Wilkins swings and misses. Rick is struck out and flied to right. Sammy Sosa has now struck out 60 times and only 251 at bats. 0-2 to Rick Wilkins. Strike 3 call. All 3 outs recorded in the 6th inning were strikeouts. It's still 4-2 New York. Middle of the 6th. We're back after this from Anheuser-Busch. Willie Randolph leads it off here in the bottom of the 6th. It's 4-2 New York and a grounder to third. Jose Vizcaíno throws out Willie Randolph. 1 out on 1 pitch here in the 6th inning.
Steve Buechele is considered day-to-day with a strain of his left rib cage when he left the first game of the doubleheader last night.
Deion Sanders is considered day-to-day too.
Yeah,
in a different way.
Passed up $1 million to report to the Falcons early.
And that was not a salary for the year.
No.
It wasn't really a bonus. The only thing it is a $1 million reporting bonus. Just to report.
Now, see, a guy who's never been to an NFL camp in August would jump on that deal right away.
Right.
But if you've been through a couple of those, it might make you a little more reluctant, even with 7 figures at stake.
Couple of 2-a-days, huh? 1 ball, 1 strike to Dick Schofield, who has singled and driven in a run. The bases loaded and 1 out in the 2nd inning. Schofield hit a high chopper to Sandberg at 2nd. And the throw by Ray Sanchez at 1st was not in time, and that RBI tied the game 1-1. And Eddie Murray's 2-run shot in the 3rd gave the Mets a 3-1 lead, and the club's traded runs in the 5th inning. It's 4-2. And 2 balls and 2 strikes to Schofield. Outside, ball 3. Full count to Dick Schofield. Hit hard to short. Sanchez. Boy, he's a good-looking shortstop. 2 outs. More on Tom.
3 Cy Young Awards, including a couple of Mets postseason years when they saw action beyond the regular season. 69-73, a 5-time 20-game winner, 5-time strikeout leader.
And David Cohn hits 1 to right center, but Sammy Sosa tracks it down. For the first time since the 1st inning, the Mets go in order, but they lead 4-2 after 6. We'll be right back after this from American Express. Top of the 7th inning, a 4-2 Met lead, and to take you through the rest of the way, here's Bob Carpenter.
All right, Tim, thank you very much. On to the 7th inning, this one moves, and as the ball game goes along, Cub hitters are starting to get a little more impatient with David Cone. We've seen them swinging earlier in the count lately. He struck out the side, sandwiched around a walk in the 6th. And before the game, the Mets saga of Doc Gooden continued. Now you see the screen behind him, so it's a simulated game. Looks like Darryl Boston in there, and there's Doc with what looked like a breaking ball or maybe some kind of sinking fastball into the dirt, but he threw for a while this morning as he continues to come back. He threw 45 pitches in 20 minutes this morning. There's Vizcaíno fouling back one from David Cone. He also threw 12 minutes on the side prior to that simulated game, and Dwight will throw again on Tuesday when the ball club is in Pittsburgh. And with Brett Saberhagen now of questionable status, it's important for the Mets to get Dwight Gooden back, but not until he's 100% ready. Looks like the day is over for Mike Morgan as Dwight Smith is set to pinch hit next. 1-1 to the leadoff man in the 7th, and Cone misses outside, ball 2.
Now the Mets did about as good a job on Mike Morgan as you could expect. Morgan had not given up more than 2 earned runs in 12 of his last 13 starts, and the Mets with 3 of their 4 runs today earned.
On only 5 hits. Cubs have been the ones wasting hits today. 2 runs on 7 hits. And this guy's on base for the 3rd time. Vizcaíno came in 2 for 2, and that's David Cone's 2nd walk of the day, and he'll face Dwight Smith.
Let's take a look at the American Express financial update. As of Friday, the Dow Jones up almost 2 points. Standard & Poor 500's up about 30 cents. Gold up 90 cents, and silver unchanged.
Coneheads went out for a snack. They had to get back in time to watch their man pitch here.
That guy on the right, or the guy behind, now see, has his ears too high. See, he's not pulling the cone head down, and that's how hot it is here at Shea. I guess he's just in the sun, and with that rubberized cone that he has on his head.
It's a 3/4 of a cone day at Shea.
If that guy only knew how he looked.
Cone heads don't care about that sort of thing.
No, that's true. If they did, they wouldn't wear those things.
1-1 to Dwight Smith, and he leans back from an inside fastball. 2-1. Cubs, of course, have had some outfield problems ever since the failure of Jerome Walton, the National League Rookie of the Year 3 years ago, who's back playing in the minor leagues now. May need a change of scenery to get things back together. He was sent down hitting 127 with 1 RBI in July. Was used sparingly and just couldn't get it going. Cubs had the look of a pretty good young outfield a couple of years ago with Dwight Smith, Jerome Walton. Cone missing low and inside, and he's about to walk the tying runs onto base. Dwight Smith 11 for 41, their most productive pinch hitter with a home run, 4 RBIs. And the 3-2 with the runner holding is scorched right over the head of Jose Martinez, the first base coach.
Chuck Cartier, the third base coach. The third base coach is giving signs now to Vizcaíno. I think Vizcaíno may have missed a sign. See if he's running this time.
No, he's not. And it's ball 4. Cone did not walk a hitter until there was 1 out in the 6th. And now he's walked 3 of the last 5 men he's faced. The GI Bill enforced out in the bullpen. Guterman, Innes throwing for Jeff Torborg. As Mel Stottlemyre makes a visit to the mound. Speaking of that bullpen, 2 consecutive games yesterday where Jeff Torborg had to go to his pen very early. Brett Saberhagen, the Game 1 injury, and Jeff Innes did a great job. In Game 2, Wally Whitehurst was knocked out early. Tom Filer did an outstanding job. So Torborg settled into his seat down in the dugout today, figuring with Cone out there, he didn't have anything to worry about. And I'll be darned if he didn't lose Bobby Bonilla after 1 inning. So the Skippers had to make some big moves in the early innings, all 3 games in this series. Cone's got to go to work now. Sanchez is up there. Maggott and Murray are shallow at the corners, expecting a bunt. And the Mets have the wheel play on with the shortstop covering third. That one back to the stop, and Todd Hundley no way to reach it.
Normally a team would not bunt to tie on the road, and in essence, by pushing Dwight Smith to second base, that's what you're doing. Smith representing the tying run. But because you've got Sandberg, Grace, and Dawson, I think it's the appropriate strategy this time around.
Two flyouts and a strikeout for Ray Sanchez. And then, of course, first base open when you work to Sandberg, so you can be careful with him, but you don't really want to put the lead run aboard either. If the sacrifice is executed. No balls and 1 strike is the count. Fastball up high, bunted very well. Cone has 1 play, and that's to Willie Randolph. And Willie had to jitterbug across the bag to the foul side to get the throw. Perfectly placed by Ray Sanchez.
Yeah, David Cone had to barehand it and throw Sanchez out. You saw David break in. There's only one place for a pitcher to break on a play like that. You don't break toward home, you break toward the line. Watch Cone break home first and then toward the line. So your responsibility is to your right. The first baseman should be where you left. So that's why you go toward the third baseline. But nonetheless, a very interesting situation here. I think you go get Sandberg right here. You do it with conviction and you try to get him out. You don't try to pitch around him. Not with Grace on deck.
And your best pitcher on the mound.
Right.
He's got the stuff to get any hitter in this league out. Fastball up and away. Now last time Sandberg got the RBI single on a slider away, but it was after Cone failed to come inside at all to move Sandberg off the plate. You might remember it was 0-2.
Right.
Fastball away, slider away, base hit. And he's staying away from Rhino. 2-0. Sandberg hitting at .301 now with 55 RBIs, 2 for 3 in this game, and having a huge weekend. There's a breaking ball that nips the outside corner. Sandberg has now hit safely 15 of 16 games since the All-Star break. 27 for 66. That's right up around 400. Big 2-1 pitch. Oh, and he gave Cone a little help by chasing the high fastball.
Rhino needed a ladder to hit this ball. About the second rung.
What will Cone choose on 2-2? He looks into Todd Hundley. Runners at second and third, 1 out. Mets by 2, top of the 7th. Cubs with 2 walks and a sacrifice in this inning. And another fastball up. That one not as high as the one before, but Sandberg couldn't get up over the top of it. Sandberg had his 60-game errorless streak come to a. Still hasn't made a throwing error in 2 years. And the 2-2 again. Breaking ball, he got him. A foul tip by Sandberg. Hundley held on. David Cone, strikeout number 6, and the biggest pitch of the game so far. He got a little help from Sandberg, who chased the fastball upstairs on 2-1, and then Cone came back to get the strikeout. He'll face Mark Grace now.
Excuse me, Bob. That was a wicked breaking ball against Sandberg.
And how about that for a wicked play by your catcher with a man at third?
Here's that breaking ball on the 2-2 pitch after Sandberg had fouled back a pitch. Oh, boy. Nasty.
Sandberg 2 for 4. It'll be up to Grace, who has worked the count to 1 ball, no strikes. Whitesmith at second. Jose Vizcaíno at third. And Grace a little bit behind it, fouled it off to the left and back. A ball and a strike.
I'd be more inclined to pitch around Mark Grace than I would Sandberg. Remember, Andre Dawson is 6 for his last 57. With that strikeout the last time up, and 0 for 3 today. Outfield entirely too deep with a guy like Grace. He's not a power hitter. He has 5 home runs, and Darryl Boston in left field and Vince Coleman in center.
And Grace about a .310 lifetime hitter against the Mets.
Yeah, he's a base hit type of hitter. He's not a power hitter, especially the other way.
This year, he's 15 of 37 against Mets pitching. A batting mark in the 390s. Here's the 1-1. Out of play, left side.
Dave Gallagher in right field is playing Mark Grace more shallow than Darryl Boston in left field or Vince Coleman in center. Look how deep Boston is. Look how deep Coleman is. Now look at Gallagher. The Gallagher's more shallow than the other two.
1-2 pitch. And it's well outside. Count goes even, 2-2. Cone wants a new baseball.
Normally, your outfielder to the pull side, a right fielder for a left-handed batter, a left fielder for a right-handed batter, they play deeper because when a hitter hits the ball, he uses his body and his arms. To go the other way, you only use your arms.
And there's a shot, way foul. He got his body and his arms into that one. And now the arms and bodies will chase the souvenir in the mezzanine. The count stays 2-2.
Paul Wainer used to call it belly buttoning the ball. That's how you use your body. You throw your belly button at the ball and the pitcher. That's a classic stroke right there.
Hundley sets the target. Down low, looked like a splitter, and Cone gets the strikeout. He has 5 Ks in the last 2 innings, and it's 7th inning stretch time at Shea. On the Newsday line score, the Mets lead the Cubs 4-2 after 6.5, and we'll return right after this message.
Fans, don't miss Emerson Radio Banner Day coming up on Sunday, August 16th. The traditional Banner Day parade will take place on the field prior to the 3:10 game against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's next Sunday. Winning banners will be awarded valuable prizes from Emerson Radio. So get your creative juices flowing. Call Ticketmaster 212-307-METS to charge tickets by phone, or call 718-507-TIXX for more information.
A day when the Mets celebrate Tom Seaver's induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame later on this afternoon up in Cooperstown. Raleigh Fingers, who refined the art of closing ball games. And the Cubs into their bullpen as Ken Patterson, the left-hander, will take over. Patterson appearing in his 20th ball game of the year. And it's Vince Coleman turning around from the right side to lead off in the 7th. Coleman an 0 for 3 days so far. And he hits one well. Tough chop out to Sanchez, and he continues his outstanding play at short. Ken Patterson, one of those former White Sox that Larry Himes has brought from the south side of Chicago up to Clark and Addison. Part of a pretty good bullpen that the White Sox had a few years ago when Barry Jones was setting things up for Bobby Thigpen in those 57 saves. Barry Jones, after the Mets shelled him the other night, let go by the Phillies. And Magadan, who can hang in well against left-handers, takes strike one. Dave with a good day. He's hit the ball well 3 times, lined out in the 1st, and then singled in the 3rd and the 5th. And he's got it back up to 290. Two balls and a strike. Mets 4 runs on 5 hits. One of those runs unearned because of a Ryan Sandberg error. And Magadan not ecstatic about the Ed Montague call on the outside corner. 2-2. Dave continues his good hitting at Shea. Came in a .309 hitter on the home turf this year. And he takes one down low. It fills the count, 3-2. Magadan came in number 7 in the league with an on-base average of .395. He turns on that one, but he got jammed a bit. And it's into the glove of Andre Dawson for the 2nd out.
Take a look at the Macy's National League scoreboard. St. Louis over Pittsburgh 1-0 in the 8th inning. Philadelphia losing to Chris Nabholz and the Montreal Expos 1-0. Cincinnati over Houston 1-0 in the 6th. Atlanta at San Francisco, San Diego at Los Angeles later on. So good pitching throughout the National League this afternoon.
Atlanta will throw Pete Smith and Steve Avery in that doubleheader out at San Francisco. They're now a half game back of the Reds, who just keep hanging in there with all the problems they've had.
Seems like those two did. We were talking about it before the game. Seems like those two teams win every day.
Yeah, it does. Reds 18 over 500 at the start of the day. Braves 17 over. Best record in baseball is the 62-41 of Toronto going into today's action. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Darrell Boston with the bases empty, 2 outs, bottom 7. And Patterson with a big breaking ball fouled off to the left.
Divisional races heating up throughout baseball. The 4 division winners have only repeated since divisional play in 1969 one time. That was back in 1978 when the Phillies and Dodgers won again in the National League, and Kansas City and the Yankees won in the American League.
Three and 2 to Boston. Good pitch low and away. Darrell got around on it. 2 outs. Bottom of the 7th, Darrell trying to keep the inning alive for Eddie Murray, who has the big hit of the day, a 2-run homer back in the 3rd that gave the Mets a 3-1 lead. And he's creeping up on some big names in baseball. Eddie Murray is. We'll talk more about that when he bats. Recently passed Duke Snyder in the home run department. He's creeping up on another great major leaguer, and also on the heels of a great name in RBIs. Boston hangs tough.
Here we talked about Mrs. Robinson earlier in the game, and where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio, right? That's what Eddie's about to do to Joe.
Yeah. Fastball up, and Murray will be the hitter with 2 outs.
Our Toyota American League scoreboard shows the Yankees over Toronto in the 7th, 5-3. Baltimore over Boston, 2-1 in the 8th inning. 5-3 Detroit over Cleveland. Minnesota Twins 4-0 over Milwaukee. Chicago over Seattle 3-2. Oakland and Kansas City, California, Texas later on.
And here's Eddie Murray, who will hit from the right side. He has 2 RBIs today, 1,534. And he's only 3 behind Joe DiMaggio now for number 30 on the all-time list. DiMaggio 1,537. And Eddie now with his 408th career homer today is only 6 behind Darrell Evans, the left-handed home run hitter for number 22 on the all-time list. And got Boston picked off. Who's covering? Not in time was Sanchez, as Boston beat him to the bag.
You know why? Because Sanchez was way over in the hole playing Eddie Murray to pull. And Sanchez had farther to run than Boston.
And a later start, too.
I'm saying, yeah, he didn't have a good jump because he didn't know Boston was running. But Sanchez had to come from way over in the hole, and watch Darrell Boston just taking off, and Sanchez arriving late, and Boston sliding just under the tag of Ray Sanchez. Wow.
Oh, what a changeup. Pedersen had Eddie Murray way out ahead of that one.
One more time. You see Grace getting into position. He throws the ball to the bag, but Sanchez just had too far to go.
No balls and 1 strike to Eddie, and a fastball up and away. That's why with nobody on 3rd, when you get picked off, you might as well keep on going.
Sure.
Your chances are a lot better for a bad throw or a late covering shortstop than they are in a rundown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how many guys get out of rundowns?
One ball and 1 strike to Eddie Murray. And it's in there from Patterson, 1-2.
By the way, the Cardinals have taken their 1-0 lead into the top of the 9th inning at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. St. Louis trying to salvage game 4 of their 4-game series. They had lost 3 in a row, or have lost 3 in a row, to Pittsburgh.
So if this one holds up and that one does, the Mets could go 4.5 out, leapfrog the Cubs, who would stay 5. Cardinals would be at 6.5. And the Expos, who have already won, would only be a single game out, with the Cubs headed for Montreal. This is the way it's supposed to be. Cubs will head for Montreal, and the Mets will head to Pittsburgh after the Hall of Fame game tomorrow. 2-2 to Murray. And a little chopper down the 3rd base line by Mike Cubbage, in foul. There's the Mets 3rd base coach, who always wants to know when I'm coming to Charlottesville for another basketball game. He's a huge Virginia Cavaliers fan. Not too far from the Mets AAA club in Tidewater, out in the hills a little bit. Breaking ball up, and Eddie jumped up to foul it off.
What a lovely setting. My daughter went to school at the University of Virginia. And
beautiful place.
Thomas Jefferson's Monticello overlooking the campus there. Get the feeling that if Jefferson were growing up in this day and age, that he'd hit cleanup on any team he wanted.
Chopper to 3rd. Long throw. Vizcaíno, and he's got Eddie Murray by a step. Anywhere he wants.
Anywhere.
The Mets have stranded their 6th runner of the day. 7 innings are in the scorebook here at Shea. 4-2 New York over Chicago. And here's a word from Bud Light. Mets baseball on to the top of the 8th inning here at Shea Stadium. Bob Carpenter with Tim McCarver. Ralph Kiner in Cooperstown today for all the celebration of Tom Seaver's induction into the Hall of Fame.
Speaking of Tom Seaver, right before Tom arrived, about 5 years before he arrived, as a matter of fact, August 2nd, 1962, the Mets began play after their second All-Star break. You remember that was the last year that they had 2 All-Star games in 1 year. There were 50 games under 500. My goodness.
You need to win a few doubleheaders in that situation. A few dozen.
Just think, they were to only win 14 more games over the to the end of the season.
And little did Mets fans know it would take 7 years to get to the 500 spot.
Oh, they knew. They knew, I think. Woo.
That was a tomahawk chop of a swing by Andre Dawson. He's in the hole 0-2. He'll bat ahead of Derek May and Sammy Sosa for the Cubs in the top of the 8th.
Was rather remarkable that only 8 years after their inaugural year, they won 100 ball games in 1969.
And one of the great organizations in baseball ever since. Fastball up. Another chop of a swing. Randolph came in. Now he has to go out, and Schofield covers up for him, and they both yield to Gallagher. Dave Gallagher had a long way to come from deep right field, but Willie Randolph was fooled. He broke straight in, and they realized the ball was back over his head. Dawson 0 for 4. Combining with Grace 1 for 8 today, so Cone has done a job on those 2 dangerous hitters.
That was a situation that nobody took anything for granted. Schofield backed up the play, and Gallagher came in, nobody taking anything for granted, because had Randolph been left to his own devices, he may have dropped the ball.
Derek May, the hitter, and Cone ahead of him. May on base twice today with a single and 2 official trips. He walked in the 6th inning. And he's 2 for 3.
That was good hitting right there. That head was right on the ball on contact.
Looked like a pretty good breaking ball that was coming down and into him. But you know what they say about down and into right-handers or left-handers? Pitchers call that the danger zone.
You got that right. That's the Bermuda Triangle. A lot of crashes in that area. Yeah. A lot of things that miss.
Some balls that disappear because you never get them back.
That's right. Never get them back.
Here's Sammy Sosa. He's lost 7 over the wall this year. He's the tying run with 1 out. Breaking ball, and Cone might be lucky to have that one back. It hung up a bit. In fact, Sammy Sosa, one of the reasons Dennis Martinez hit him with a pitch back on the 12th of June, Sammy had been on a home run tear, so Dennis was trying to move him off the plate. Sosa had hit 4 homers in the last week and a half up to that point, was really getting in a groove after getting his first look at National League pitching. Then he had to go on the DL. And here's where some of the definitions of injuries raise your eyebrows sometimes. He had a hairline fracture, out for about 5 weeks. So what gets Marquise Grissom back in there after a couple of days? There's no way that's a hairline fracture.
No way. If he's playing after 2 days, there's no way that he has a hairline fracture in his hand.
Sammy's in the hole 0-2. And Cone baits him with the breaking ball away. It's a little later now, so Anthony Young is up and throwing for the Mets. Of course, John Franco is back. So Anthony will be warming up inning or so earlier than he has been for the last 3 weeks. David Cone about to throw his 135th pitch. And what a ledger he has had lately. 166, 131, 115, and 134 today as the Mets play in the 8th inning. Number 135 is a pretty good one, and Sosa is down for the second time on strikes, and that's number 8 for David Cone. He didn't have the strikeout touch today until the third, had only 2 Ks through 4 innings, in fact through 5. Then he got to work.
It's almost as though he got stronger as the game progressed, and sometimes a pitcher loosens up as the game progressed, and you couple that with the fact that the Cubs are tired just like the Mets are after playing 2 last night. They got some bats that are dragging this afternoon.
And they're about to go up and play a ball club that has the look of a team 1 game out of first place, Montreal. Met fans will be doing a little scoreboard watching during that series when tomorrow Frank Castillo will throw against Dennis Martinez, Mike Harkey and Mark Gardner Tuesday, and Jeff Robinson, who shut down the Mets last night, will pitch Wednesday against Brian Barnes.
Well, baseball is back in Montreal. Several crowds recently, over 40,000 people. They averaged 29,000 on a recent homestand before this one.
Just goes to prove what Kevin Costner told us: if you win it, they will come. Something like that anyway.
Kevin told us that? He did?
Well, the voice told him that. The voice of baseball, wherever that is. It's lurking around ballparks everywhere. If you win, they will come. 2 balls and a strike, and they'll pay too. This fly ball twisting foul down the left field side and into the first row. No chance for Darrell Boston. 2-2.
You know, the town of Montreal, really their interest in baseball seemed to die the minute Gary Carter left that town. And in 1985 through 1990, or really through last year, they really haven't had big crowds up there to support that club. When the days when they had Dawson and Raines and Carter, Tim Wallach was young. They have a fine young ball club.
And this one well hit to center. Coleman going back. He'll stop at about the 375 mark and haul it in. Derek May stranded, and the Cubs have stranded 8 runners today. Cone and his fans enjoying the action today. 4-2 Mets as we go to the bottom of the 8th inning. And here's a word from Chemical. David Cone up close to 140 pitches, consulting with Mel Stottlemyre. Hat off, towel around the neck, possibly done for the day. Who knows? We'll wait till the top of the 9th, but the Mets have to bat first in the bottom of the 8th inning, and they'll be facing the 3rd Chicago pitcher of the day. Bob Scanlon is out of the bullpen for his 46th appearance of the year. He and Chuck McElroy, along with Paul Ossenmacher, are the 3 busiest Cub pitchers. McElroy's been in 46 times and Ossenmacher 45.
Yeah, before the beginning of the 1991 season, it was Chuck McElroy and Bob Scanlon who came to the Cubs from the Phillies for Mitch the Wild Thing Williams.
So with this appearance, Scanlon up into the top 10 in the league in appearances. Joe Baver of Houston, Doug Jones of Houston, 56 and 53 respectively, and then Jeff Innes of the Mets 52 and Mike Perez of the Cardinals 50. And Dave Gallagher up there for the 4th time today. 0 for 2 with a sacrifice fly and his 13th RBI. Scanlon sort of that herky-jerky motion. A sinker slider pitcher. Gallagher scored a run in the 2nd, and when he reached on Sandberg's error, He hits one well, but foul down the right field side. 2-2.
Dave's done a good job today. He's really hit 2 balls well, and the sacrifice flies last time up.
And there he is, John Franco, waiting a long time to get a chance for that 12th save of the year. Last time he pitched June 28th against the Cardinals. So it's been right at 5 weeks. And there's your horse that we talked about a couple of hours ago. David Cone has again pitched his team into the 9th inning. Gallagher takes one down low, and he's on base for the 3rd time today. Gallagher will be one of those not in the box score guys when you look at the paper tomorrow. You'll see him 0 for 2 with a walk and say, so what? All 4 of his at-bats have been influential in this ball game.
Quality at-bats, they really have.
And here's Todd Hundley. He's been on base twice. Everybody in the Met lineup has been on base except for Vince Coleman. Hundley deadens one in front of the mound. Scanlon one play. And the sacrifice goes 1-3 as Jeff Torborg plays for some 3-run insurance here in the 8th inning. And a good day by Hundley with a hit-and-run single that helped set up a run, a walk, and a sacrifice.
You saw Chris Donalds pounding Hundley on the head like that. You don't want to do real well if you're going to get that type of reception in the dugout.
Donald's just up from AAA.
Get injured shaking hands now in the dugout.
The Tidewater Bash coming to Shea Stadium.
Yeah. Today in the New York Times, Murray Chas had an interesting note in his column talking about how handshakes have reached the point of being ridiculous in the major leagues now.
On a fastball, Randolph chops one. Scanlon pounces and throws him out. That's the 2nd out, and over to 3rd base goes Gallagher.
Murray talking about how recently one guy was given a high five in the dugout after they were intentionally walked and taken out for a pinch runner. They got a high five for it.
As a broadcaster, my favorite one, Tim, is when they throw 4 balls on an intentional walk and the guy comes on the press box PA and says intentional walk.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And Dick Schofield stepping in with a runner at 3rd and 2 down. 1-0 the count. Schofield with an RBI today, his 23rd of the year. He has a single in 3 trips and a breaking ball from Scanlon in there. 1 ball, 1 strike. Looking ahead to the Cub 9th, they have their 8, 9, and leadoff positions due up. It's possible the Mets will not have to face Sandberg again. They would need 1 runner to get down to him. Donalds will hit for Cone if the bottom of the 8th continues.
Unless Jeff Torborg's sending Donalds out there with the intention of getting Cone out there in the top of the 9th inning. Maybe to prevent Jim Lefevre from walking Schofield in this situation. Just a thought. But with all appearances, it does appear that Franco will be the pitcher in the 9th inning.
1-2. It's not a situation where Cone could not pitch the 9th, but you have to think that Jeff is eager to get Franco in there. And look at that. The Pirates come from behind and beat the Cardinals 2-1. Lee Smith beaten in the 9th inning, and the Pirates will hold on to at least a 2-game lead in the East. And a swing and a miss by Schofield. The Mets are gone. They strand their 5th runner of the day. And to the top of the ninth we go. Will it be Cone? Will it be Franco? We'll wait and see. Here's a word from MetLife. Well, the answer to our question is in the middle of your screen. John Franco has not pitched for 5 weeks. And as they play Johnny Be Good as usual here at Shea Stadium, he'll try to rock through the 9th inning against the Cubs and preserve a 4-2 Met lead.
The last time that John pitched, as Bob said earlier, back on June 28th against the Cardinals, he suffered a loss. It was his first loss of the year. He went out with tendonitis in his left elbow, felt a burning sensation in the elbow, and he's been out for the last 5 weeks. So Franco in for David Cone. Cone going 8 innings, striking out 8 and walking 2, giving up 2 earned runs and 7 hits. Make that 8 hits.
Michael Zucker and Mike Kino, please go to the press table. Michael Zucker.
David Cone will go 13-4 if Franco can nail it down for him. Franco is after his 12th save of the year with the Mets on top by 2 here in the 9th. And not to be forgotten, the efforts of Anthony Young, 8 for 8 in save opportunities with John Franco on the disabled list. Found himself a home in the bullpen after struggling as a starter. Jose Vizcaíno has been a tough out today. He has singled twice, driven a run home, scored a run, and walked. And Franco down low with that one. 1 ball, 1 strike. And Franco gets one knee high by him. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Luis Salazar is the man waiting to pinch hit in the number 9 spot. So the best the Mets can do now is stay 5.5 back of the Pirates. But they could still leapfrog over the Cubs into 3rd place by winning this one. Cubs would be 6 back. With the Pirates winning today, Montreal will stay 2 back. And the Cardinals had a chance to be 6.5 back. They're now 8.5 out. And there's a base hit to left field. Franco kicks at the mound disgustedly as Vizcaíno has a perfect day on base 4 times, 3 for 3. Came in hitting 199. He'll be up around 210 with that base hit. And Salazar, a 210 hitter, will step in.
Now, unless the Mets get a double play, that means they will be facing Ryan Sandberg
as the tying run. Anthony Young is still throwing. And it'll be interesting to see what Jeff Torborg would do with a bunch of right-handers coming up. There's a double play ball. Magadan, Randolph, 5-4-3 around the horn. Franco got inside on the right-hander and he pulled it right at Dave Magadan.
This thing was made to order. You can't say room service anymore because most hotels now it's in-room dining. So that was an in-room dining double play.
And it arrived a lot quicker. Here's Ray Sanchez. He's 0 for 3 with a sacrifice, and the Mets are within and out of taking 2 of 3 from the Cubs in the series. There's a bouncer to short. Schofield charges, fires, and the Mets have taken care of it. Cone will go out to congratulate John Franco. David wins his 13th of the year. Franco with save number 12, and the Mets win it 4-2, even though they were out hit 9-5 by the Cubs. Chicago a little frustrated. They stranded 8 runners in the game. They had Cone in tight situations throughout the day, but only could manage single runs in the 2nd and the 5th. And the Mets jump over the Cubs into 3rd place in the National League East, staying 5.5 back of the victorious Pirates. Cone outduels Mike Morgan, who falls to 9-5 as the Mets win it 4-2. Tim and I return with a wrap-up after this message. A word from Coca-Cola Classic. Well, the errors came into play a little bit today. The Mets got a little uncharacteristic help from Ryne Sandberg with an early error in the ball game. Eddie Murray a big home run, and David Cone his usual outstanding self as the Mets held on to beat the Cubs 4-2. It ends a string of 3 consecutive series the Chicago Ball Club had won. They had come in winning 8 of 10 and 10 of 14, and those divisional wins against those ball clubs right with you in the standings, Tim, so very important.
Yeah, that's really true. David Cone always, for the most part, giving the Mets a chance to win and opening things up to where they get an opportunity from a guy like Eddie Murray. Seemed like Mike Morgan made a mistake on a 2-1 pitch. He got one up in the strike zone, and Eddie Murray took care of that, and David Cone took care of the Chicago Cubs, and I guess that's why he's our Budweiser star of the game.
With the little help from John Franco, who was the icing on the cake, but Cone now 13-4, and he threw a lot of pitches again today, up around 140 or so, and he took care of them with 8 strikeouts on the day, the National League strikeout leader. David Cone, our Budweiser player of the game, and here's a word from Bud Light. Mets over the Cubs 4-2 to gain 2 out of 3 in this short weekend series with last night's doubleheader split. And the big crowd of 33,000 plus filing out on our Nobody Beats the Wiz game summary. Ryne Sandberg and Derek May had a couple of hits each, and Jose Vizcaíno batting in that number 8 spot. A big day, but the Cubs stranded 8 runners against David Cone, who threw 8. Struck out 8, struggled with control in the middle of the ball game a little bit, but got help from Eddie Murray's 2-run homer. That shot back in the 3rd inning gave the Mets a 3-1 lead they never lost. And Dave Magadan had a good day as well. He came in hitting 287 and got up around the 291 mark or so with a 2-hit day as the Mets beat the Cubs by a score of 4-2. So it's on to the Hall of Fame game tomorrow. And then, Tim, 2 very important games in Pittsburgh, Tuesday, Wednesday.
And we will be carrying the game on Tuesday night in Pittsburgh with the first pitch at 7:35. We'll be on the air at 7:30.
So the Mets beat the Cubs 4-2, and we'll be right back after these messages.